Coming up, a segment from KTWU, your source for public television. Afterwards, don't forget to visit ktwu.org to make a pledge to help make more local programming like this.
As some people concentrate on the preservation of historic structures, others focus on the preservation of ecosystems and open space. In our next story, we'll learn about the preservation of a large tract of tallgrass prairie near Fort Riley through the use of a conservation easement.
Thank you everyone for coming out and sharing this occasion with the Kansas Land Trust and Mr. Rod Moyer, whose ranch you are now on. This is the ranch headquarters here. It was a nice, convenient place to hold this event, and we sure did get a great crowd. So thank you everyone for coming out. My name's Jason Fazell. I'm with the Kansas Land Trust, one of the people that gets to interact directly with the landowners when they first give us a call and they're kicking around this idea. With that, I'll invite up Mr. Rod Moyer to give us a welcome to the ranch. Thank you.
As he approaches retirement, this lifelong Kansas rancher has been considering how he could best preserve his ranch land for future generations. He's ended up negotiating a conservation easement with the Kansas Land Trust.
It's a deep privilege of mine to be able to welcome all of you here. This is a wonderful day for Moyer Ranch and for the Flint Hills of Kansas, and I'm glad to see that so many of you were able to join us today. Easement will restrict any type of commercial or residential development on this ranch. There won't be any housing development or any type of commercial development any place here forever. This Kansas Land Trust group will be able to oversee this ranch forever and maintain good conservation practices for whoever is managing or owning this ranch. Well, my family is interested in seeing that their heritage and this land be preserved for future generations. They're not interested in operating the ranch. So I needed a vehicle which would preserve the prairie and preserve a lot of the conservation measures which we had established here. And the Kansas Land Trust would offer this. Also, there's going to be some estate tax due, and I needed some consideration in some manner that would help to offset some of the estate taxes that would be due and not be a great burden on my family and still be able to keep a ranch of this size intact.
In return for relinquishing certain development rights through these conservation easements, landowners receive financial consideration in the form of tax deductions or reductions, as well as a negotiated one-time payment. In this case, a large portion of that payment came from the U.S. Army by way of its Compatible Use Buffer program. Representatives of the Army came to participate in this dedication ceremony, noting that base realignment strategies and encroaching development have had an impact on military reservations such as Fort Riley.
And that's really what brought us to where we are with this Compatible Use Buffer program, because over the past 7 or 8 years, the Army has transformed. We've grown by over 75,000. We've brought back soldiers that were stationed for years in Germany and Korea. We've realigned the force. We've closed installations and consolidated our units at other installations. And so quite honestly, things are getting pretty tight for the Army on the land. And so that is what precipitated this Compatible Use Buffer program that helps us prevent incompatible development along our boundaries. And so if we can protect those boundaries at critical locations around the fence line, so to speak, then that will help us continue our training and continue to be the ready force that this nation needs each and every day, using the land to the maximum capability that we can inside the fence line.
And so we have a concern, one, to keep the fort healthy for the Kansas economy and for our national defense, but we also have the tremendous responsibility to protect this land.
In addition to the Army, the Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks also contributed funds to procure this conservation easement. Those funds were generated from the conversion of parts of a deactivated Army ammunition plant in southeastern Kansas into a nature and hunting reserve. The Secretary of Wildlife and Parks, Mike Hayden, notes that the easement not only provides a compatible use for the military, but for declining populations of wildlife as well.
And these kind of easements that keep this land in ranching are a compatible use with these species of wildlife that we see disappearing. We see many ground nesting birds disappearing across their range. And the whole idea behind this is that this will slow that disappearance, and this will give these spatial creatures a place to live in perpetuity.
It's really important to have large tracts of land for habitat.
A member of the board for the Kansas Land Trust, Valerie Wright serves as an environmental educator and naturalist at the Kanza Prairie Biological Station.
If you have little patches of prairies like in Illinois and Iowa, plants and animals can't move from one place to another. Wildlife corridors are what keeps the ecosystem healthy. It's that ability to move, to find a new place, to find host plants, to find nesting habitat, whatever animals need, plants need.
The Kanza Prairie and the Moyer Ranch are both large tracts of prairie that are in relatively close proximity.
The Moyer Ranch is just down the road from us. We've got 8,600 acres here. Rod Moyer had the foresight to put nearly 7,000 acres on a conservation easement. We've got the Tallgrass Prairie Preserve down there with 10,000 acres. These are important big parcels of land, and it's just what we're all talking about is what we need to do. And if we have that connection throughout the Flint Hills from one parcel to another, not just here and there, but keep most of the Flint Hills connected that way, that would be the best thing for the Tallgrass Prairie ecosystem.
As the dedication ceremony drew to a close, the partners in this conservation easement stepped up to sign off on it. In addition to the Army, Wildlife and Parks, Rod Moyer, and the Land Trust, there was one other major partner.
USDA's Natural Resource and Conservation Service. They provided the Farm and Ranchland Protection Program funds to help put this over the top.
Although high-voltage power lines run through the middle of the Moyer Ranch, there will be no large wind turbines erected here, as was once under consideration. Nor will there be any housing developments or retail centers. With the acceptance of conservation easements, old notions about progress are called into question, as ranch manager Trey Allen expressed with his cowboy poetry to conclude the ceremony.
When that mindset changes, we're allowed to consider that no matter what is reaped or sown, progress may just best be measured by the things we leave alone.
Glad you could stop by to see a clip from KTWU. It's your input that helps make public television great. Consider a donation. Browse over to ktwu.org right now.